Wait, before you say the Beatles, listen close, because the top-selling pop artist of the 1960s is not who most people think. This is not my opinion. This list is based on real record sales and the artists people were buying the most in the 1960s. Picture the 1960s. Radios playing all day, vinyl records spinning at home, and music blasting in shops, cars, and living rooms. Here's the twist. One artist sold so many records that they quietly beat the biggest names, and most people today don't even know it. So now we're counting down the top 10 best-selling pop artists of the 1960s from number 10 to number 1. And when you hear who really won the decade, you're going to say, no way, really? Number 10, The Monkees, I'm a Believer. This song feels like sunshine in your chest, happy, bouncy, and impossible to sit still to. Picture a small living room in 1966, the TV glowing, kids on the floor, parents smiling, and the radio playing the same catchy chorus again and again. It's the kind of pop that makes strangers sing together without planning it. Now you know how happy I can be. The Monkees were a TV band that became a real hit band for millions of people. Their music came out on Coal Gems Records, and their biggest run was in the mid to late 1960s. I'm a Believer is basically a simple story. I didn't believe in love, then love hit me and changed my mind. And the impact was huge. By 1967, the Monkees were selling so many records in the U.S. that they outsold the Beatles and the Rolling Stones combined for that year. That's not small, that's pop madness. Fun fact, I'm a Believer was written by Neil Diamond. Yes, that Neil Diamond. So you had a perfect storm, a super catchy writer, a super popular TV show, and a band that felt like your funny friends on screen. You know how happy I can be. Why it's forgotten/underrated. A lot of people later tried to clown the Monkees because they started as a TV project, not a serious rock band. So even though the songs were real hits, they got treated like fake pop and pushed aside when music got more serious and louder. But real pop fans know this is hit-making genius, clean hooks, big smiles, and pure replay power. This is crate digger gold. And if you think a TV band selling like that is shocking, wait for number 9, because the next name is a legend who never stopped moving records. I've lived a life that's... Number 9, Elvis Presley, Can't Help Falling in Love. This song feels slow, warm, and close, like a quiet moment at the end of a long day. Picture a dim living room in the early 1960s, lights low, parents sitting close, the radio playing soft while the world slows down. Oh, and more, much more than this. Elvis wasn't shouting anymore. He was crooning, and people leaned in to listen. By the 1960s, Elvis was no longer the wild young rebel, but he was still selling records non-stop. He released music through RCA Records and starred in a long run of Hollywood movies with soundtracks that sold millions. Without exemption, I plan. Can't Help Falling in Love came out in 1961, and it's about simple love you can't fight, it just happens. Even in a decade full of new bands, Elvis stayed on the charts because families, adults, and couples kept buying his records again and again. When there was doubt, I ate it up. Fun fact, Elvis put out more than 30 movies in his career, and many of them came with albums that sold big. People would watch the movie, then go straight to the record store and buy the songs.
I find it all so amusing.
Why it's forgotten / underrated. When people talk about Elvis, they usually focus on the 1950s rebel years, not the calmer 1960s era. Some fans call the movie song soft or safe, so this period gets brushed aside. But sales don't lie. Elvis stayed powerful because grown-ups had money and they kept choosing him.
I've had my fill, my share of losing.
Real heads remember, the king never left the building. And if Elvis at number 9 feels surprising, number 8 will really make you look twice, because this next pop star ruled outside America in a big way. Sell millions. Number 7, Simon and Garfunkel, Bridge Over Troubled Water. This song feels calm, gentle, and emotional, like a quiet talk with someone you trust. Picture the late 1960s, headphones on, lights low, people thinking about life, love, and change while the world feels loud outside. Their music didn't rush you, it made you stop and listen. Simon and Garfunkel were a folk pop duo who became huge sellers by the end of the decade. They released music on Columbia Records, and their biggest moment came in 1968 to 1970. Bridge Over Troubled Water is about helping someone through hard times. Simple words, deep meaning. The song and album sold millions of copies worldwide and stayed on the charts for weeks, helping them close the 1960s as one of pop's biggest acts. Fun fact, Art Garfunkel sang the lead on Bridge Over Troubled Water, not Paul Simon, and that almost didn't happen. That choice helped make the song one of the most powerful vocals of the entire decade. Why it's forgotten / underrated. Because they broke up soon after their biggest success, their run felt short compared to other stars. Their soft sound also gets overshadowed by louder rock bands when people talk about the 60s. But when it came to albums sold and songs that lasted, Simon and Garfunkel were quiet giants. This is soul deep pop that still hits. And if calm, gentle music can sell like that, number 6 shows how powerful pop becomes when it takes over the radio completely. My world is empty with number 6, The Supremes, Stop, In the Name of Love. This music feels sharp, stylish, and full of emotion, the kind that makes you snap your fingers without thinking. Picture the mid-1960s, bright dresses, clean dance moves on TV, radios playing nonstop, and families gathered around the screen watching Motown shine. My world is empty without you, babe. It's pop that feels classy, but still hits your heart. The Supremes were the biggest female pop group of the 1960s and one of Motown's greatest success stories. They released their hits on Motown Records, with many songs written and produced by the legendary Holland Dozier Holland team. Stop. In the Name of Love is about love, heartbreak, and pleading before it's too late. Simple words, big feeling. From 1964 to 1967, the Supremes stacked multiple number 1 hits, crossing over from black radio to mainstream pop charts worldwide. Fun fact, the Supremes scored 12 number 1 songs on the Billboard Hot 100, more than any other American group of the 1960s. That kind of chart power was almost unheard of at the time. Why it's forgotten / underrated. As the group changed and Diana Ross went solo, people started focusing more on the breakup than the music. Later rock history also pushed Motown to the side when telling the story of the 60s. But the truth is clear. The Supremes helped pop music grow up and go global. This is hit-making royalty. And if one girl group could dominate like that, number 5 proves that pop power didn't stop at Motown. It ruled the airwaves too.
I'm picking up good vibration.
Number 5, The Beach Boys, Good Vibrations. This song feels bright, sunny, and dreamy, like riding in a car with the windows down on a warm day. Picture California in the 1960s. Blue skies, surfboards, beach radios playing loud, and teenagers chasing that perfect feeling.
Close my eyes, she's somehow closer now.
Even when music started getting heavier, the Beach Boys still sounded like summer itself. The Beach Boys were one of the best-selling American pop groups of the decade, mixing simple fun with smart songwriting. They released music on Capitol Records, led by Brian Wilson, who pushed pop into new creative spaces. Good Vibrations, released in 1966, is about love, energy, and that good feeling you get when everything feels right. The song was a massive global hit, sold millions, and showed that pop music could still win big even as rock got louder and darker. Fun fact, Good Vibrations took months to record and used pieces from different sessions stitched together. At the time, it was one of the most expensive pop singles ever made, and it paid off. Why it's forgotten/underrated. When people talk about the 1960s, they often focus on British bands and ignore how strong American pop still was. The Beach Boys also get boxed in as just surf music, even though they grew far beyond that. But the sales tell the story. They didn't just survive the decade, they dominated it. This is pop history that still shines. And if Sunny Pop could sell like that, number 4 shows what happens when rebellion meets record-breaking power. Number 4, The Rolling Stones, I Can't Get No Satisfaction. This song feels raw, loud, and a little dangerous, like turning the volume up when you're not supposed to. Picture the mid-1960s, teenagers crowding around radios, parents shaking their heads, and guitars buzzing through cheap speakers late at night. The Stones sounded like trouble, and that's exactly why people love them. The Rolling Stones came out of London, signed to Decca Records, and quickly became the rebellious mirror to cleaner pop acts. Satisfaction, released in 1965, is about frustration, wanting more from life, love, and the world around you.
Stuck around St. Petersburg when I saw it was the time for.
Even though they leaned more toward rock, their singles sold in massive pop numbers across the US and UK. By the late 60s, the Stones were one of the biggest selling acts on the planet, so proving rebellion could move just as many records as Sweetness.
Pleased to meet you. Hope you guess my.
Fun fact, Keith Richards wrote the famous Satisfaction riff half asleep, then went back to bed. That rough buzzing guitar sound was never meant to be fancy. It just felt right.
Ah, yeah. But what's confusing you is just a name.
Why it's forgotten/underrated. Because the Stones are remembered as a rock band, people forget how much pure pop success they actually had. Their rough image also made some adults nervous, even though they were still buying the singles. But the truth is simple.
But what's puzzling you is just the nature of my game.
Attitude sold, and the Rolling Stones sold a lot of it. This is rebel pop at its peak. And if rebellion could sell like that, Number 3 proves that smooth voices and classic style still had serious buying power.
Fly me to the moon. Let me play up there with those.
Number 3, Frank Sinatra, Strangers in the Night. This song feels smooth, calm, and grown up, like a late evening when everything finally slows down. Picture the early 1960s, soft lights, a drink on the table, couples dancing close in living rooms while the radio plays low. Sinatra didn't rush you.
My hand. In other words,
He owned the moment. By the start of the 1960s, Frank Sinatra was already a legend, but he was still selling huge numbers. He released music through Capitol Records and later Reprise Records, a label he helped create. Strangers in the Night, released in 1966, is about two people meeting and falling in love by surprise. While rock bands chased teenagers, Sinatra's audience, adults with money, kept buying full albums, pushing his sales high all through the decade. Fun fact, Sinatra reportedly didn't even like Strangers in the Night at first. Yet, it became one of his biggest hits, showing that even Frank couldn't always predict his own magic. Why it's forgotten / underrated. When people talk about the 60s, they usually jump straight to youth culture and rock bands. That makes it easy to forget how powerful adult pop still was in record sales. But the truth is clear. While kids screamed for bands,
you fill my heart with song. Let me sing for.
Parents were buying Sinatra in bulk. This is quiet power that ruled the decade, and if classic style could still dominate like that, number 2 is the band everyone thinks already won, until the numbers tell a different story. Number 2, the Beatles, Hey Jude. This song feels huge, emotional, and together, like a whole crowd singing as one. Picture the late 1960s, radios turned up, friends shoulder to shoulder, and voices joining in on that long na-na-na part. The Beatles didn't just make songs, they made moments. The Beatles came out of Liverpool, signed to EMI/Parlophone, and changed pop music forever. By the mid-1960s, they were selling albums and singles at a level no band had ever reached before.
You let me be your man, and please.
Hey Jude, released in 1968, is about comfort and hope, telling someone not to give up when things feel hard. Even with all that power, when you add up total sales across the entire decade, they land just short of number 1.
When I touch you, I feel happy.
Fun fact, Hey Jude became one of the best-selling singles of all time, and its long ending was risky for radio. But it worked. That sing-along ending turned listeners into part of the song.
Got that something, I think you'll understand.
Why it's forgotten / underrated. Because the Beatles were so culturally loud, many people assume they also won every sales title automatically. But sales depend on who is buying.
Say that something, I wanna hold your hand.
And older listeners bought lots of records too, not just teens. So even legends can finish second when the numbers are counted carefully. Greatest doesn't always mean biggest, and if the Beatles are only number 2, number 1 is about to flip everything you thought you knew about pop history upside down. Number 1, Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass, A Taste of Honey. This music feels warm, smooth, and friendly, like a smile you don't have to think about. Picture the mid-1960s, records spinning in living rooms, music playing in stores, radios on all day, and families listening together. It wasn't loud or wild. It was music that fit everywhere. Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass were the biggest record sellers of the 1960s, even if people don't talk about it much today. They released music on A&M Records, a label Herb Alpert helped create himself. A Taste of Honey, released in 1965, is an instrumental song. No singing, just a clean, catchy sound that anyone could enjoy. From 1965 to 1967, they sold more records than the Beatles, and at one point had 5 albums in the Billboard Top 10 at the same time. That is real dominance. Fun fact, Herb Alpert once held the #1 album and the #1 single at the same time, and he was also the label boss. Very few artists in history have ever done that. Why it's forgotten / underrated? Because the music was instrumental and calm. It didn't feel cool or rebellious like rock bands. As pop history focused more on youth culture, this kind of easy listening music got pushed aside. But the truth is simple. Everyone bought these records, from kids to parents to grandparents. Real heads know this is quiet domination. So next time someone says pop history is only about the loudest bands, remember this. Sometimes the biggest winner is the one playing softly while everyone listens.